Okay, this is the first recitation. Julian manages our computing infrastructure very capably, and uh, version control in GitLab, if you haven't encountered it, initially is a steep learning curve and annoying, and is one of the most useful things we'll teach you. All of my, I had mentioned before in class, all of my life lives in version control repos in GitLab. So, Julian.
Yeah, thank you. So I will start off very slow to just talk about the tools we have, just to get you familiar for those really lost as you start this week. And then we'll get into really like Git, doing some Git stuff, and then maybe working with your documentation, I think will be interesting. So I just want to first tell you a bit about the four different tools you will be using this year with Fab Academy. We have fablabs.io, which is the FabLab network map of all the Fab Labs around the world. And it's also our special tool that we use to sign on. So you will always go to this website, log in, and then go somewhere else. The next up is GitLab, which is a hosted service that basically will store all your Git repositories, and this is what we'll be showing today. It's a bit like GitHub, but we host it ourselves. We also have a sort of chat application called chat.academy.org, where you can chat with everyone in the whole Academy class, with students, with your node. You can make different channels and have collaborative sessions and very live. So it's just a place where you're all together if you want to be, you know, a bit like Slack, or if you've used this before. And then lastly is a very important, your evaluation tool that we will be using with your instructors, and that's nouval.academy. And I hope later on your instructors will show you a bit the tool. So if this is an example, I'll just quickly show you nouval.academy. You log in with your FabLabs IO account. So when you click login, you will be redirected temporarily to fablabs.io. And here you've got to put in your username and password. I hope you got all your emails with your password and usernames. This is where you set it up, and then you put in your details here. So for example, I will put in mine. Wait, whoops. And then I will click sign in. If you did not get your like sort of a welcome email from Fab Academy, please contact coordination, so we can link your, maybe you created yourself and we have to link it. So when you log in, this is your student dashboard. And so just to show you that as an example, this is what you would see. You click your local evaluation, and then you will have each week is a different module. And so this is just examples. So yours will look different. And in here, you can then see each week what is needed from you, how you will be evaluated, and your instructors will grade you on this. And then you have a personal checklist which you can slowly tick off to keep track of your work, and so your instructors know where you are. And you can also have feedback between your instructors and global instructors. So here's a place where you can write to your instructors, and your instructors can write to you, sort of an internal messaging system. So just have a look around here with your instructors, and I would just want to quickly show you Nouval is there for you. And same for Mattermost. When you go to chat.academy, it's the same. You log in through this sort of FabLab 0. You can explore it yourself. It's just yeah. And also GitLab, yeah. So this is GitLab, gitlab.fabcloud.io. I'm going to show you also how to log into that. And this is not using the username and password fields. You want to be using the fablabs.io button. So you're always redirected to the fablabs.io. This is wherever you log in, you always click in. You should try and look in for the special button that just redirects you to fablabs.io. Because I'm already logged in, it's just automatically redirecting back again. And now I'm in GitLab. So what is GitLab? GitLab is sort of a web hosting service for your Git repositories. And it's sort of a wrapper around where you also have an issue tracker where you can make discussions about your problems. You know, so a lot of websites use it to host code and then work with a big team. And then you can make issues and sort of project planning system. And it also allows us to, with your Git repository, have a website hosting feature. So every Git repository can have a website hosted as well through GitLab. And so that just simplifies the whole process. And those linking the website to your repository is done with a CI pipeline. So this is sort of an automatic project building tool. So this is a great tool. It's a bit like GitHub, where everything's together to make so you can view your websites through the browser. Yeah. So yeah, this is the, I'll just quickly again say, you should have gotten an email saying Fab Academy 25 accounts access. Please double check that you get this email. And look in your spam folder. It came from coordination at fabracademy.org. And this will have all the details you need to log in. And every time when you log in, you click the FabLabs.io, you get the login screen. So you make sure you have fablabs.io is your website. This is where you'll put in your username and your password, and you click sign in. You'll be ready. Sometimes you will be asked, the first time you'll be asked, are you sure you want to allow GitLab access to your FabLabs account? So this is just a double check. And then you'll be redirected to GitLab or Novell, wherever you're logging in from. Yeah. So how do we use GitLab? We have all our student repositories are stored in GitLab. We also use this as a way to communicate with the class. So there's like a class bulletin board where Neil and instructors sometimes will post issues. You can also make issues with other students saying, you know, I have this machine, I need help. So it's a good way to just put it to everyone and in their own time. It's a bit different flow as a chat. It's more just helping each other and as a long form sort of issue tracker. And we also store all the websites through here. So this is all done through GitLab pages. And I'll show you a bit the structure, how it works is we have a Fab Academy group, and each year there's another folder within Fab Academy. And in each year there are lab folders, and in a lab folder, each lab has their own folder. And so you break down, and then you have students. And so if you would like to find other years, you can just go back like this. So it's a bit, this is sort of the structure as a URL. You can see you start with the year, then you have labs, then you have the name of a lab, a student, and then there'll be your name. This is the same if you're looking at someone else's work, you can figure out what year they are through the URL or what lab they're hosted in, and maybe this is nice for you to know. If you go to the Fab Academy 2025 website, fabacademy.org/25, there is a nice page, people.html, where you have all the students that are participating this year. So you can look at what other people are working on for this week and the previous weeks. And this just helps you all to collaborate and work together, get inspiration, your fellow students. And also check out your website if you want to remember your URL. And oops. Yeah. And also, if we just go to /25, you can also go to previous years, looking at all the years. And then you can the same thing for every year. You can go back, there's a student page, and then you can go and see other students from previous years and just search this way. I just wanted to highlight that. Did I? Okay. Now a bit about GitLab, so we can sort of familiarize ourselves. This will be your entry point. When you first log in, this is sort of the dashboard. You'll see the projects you're part of. So you should see your repository and maybe the class repository. So for example, it will be Academy. So this is what the Fab Academy folder looks like. We have labs, a labs folder where you have each of the labs all under there with all the students. We have a class archive, a class website, and this is where all the students are. So this is where you can make an issue. And is this where you can make an issue? One second. Sorry. I think I'm not a member. Yeah. So on the left, you have, I'm looking at one project. This is the Fab Academy 25 class project page, which you should be a member of. And then on the left, there's an issue page. So if you click this, this is a place where you can view notices put up by your instructors and Neil. And you can also write your own. So you can say, let's write a new issue. And then, so for example, if you need help with a project, if you're looking for ideas, you can write an issue here with a title and a description. And then everyone will get notified. And then hopefully everyone will contribute and write messages. So, and then if we look at, I'm gonna go back to, if you would look at your own student page, so I just made an example one, but yours should look like this. When you first go to the page, you will see the list of files that are in your project. And by default, this is a public folder, which has a bunch of HTML documents, a CI folder, which is telling GitLab how to deploy your website. And then there's a README, which is just for this project. So if someone comes to this repository, they see. And on the left side, you also have your own personal issue board. So you can also just, for example, if you want to do some project management, you can make some issues and then, sort of laying out your week or your to-do list for each week. And this will just be for your repo. So it's sort of a personal note-taking thing. And then on the left, you have the code, which is your repository. It's again, this list of files that you can see. You can look at the history of all your commits. And I'll get a bit more into depth a bit later of all these terminologies. You will also have the build page, which is your pipeline. So every commit, there's sort of a process that happens that deploys your website. So you can check on the status of each of the deployments. I don't have any at the moment. And yeah. So you're mainly, and then let's go back to code, repository. I want to see all my files. And then there's also in GitLab, we have a nice little way of working inside. There's a little web IDE, which is a web editor. So I can edit these files straight from from the GitLab, and I can edit my repository. And this, you should look familiar. So that's your project page. Get familiar with all the pages. In the beginning, it might feel all daunting. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of pages. Don't fret, you'll get used to it. And this is just the beginning, yeah. Okay. So if I was, something important about GitLab is, we're hosting all the files in a repository. But then we use a feature called GitLab CI, which is a way to run scripts every time we make a change. It will run some commands that we define. And this is useful, for example, if you have a website builder that makes a website for you with a theme and templates, or if you have some tests that you do, like, you know, when you're doing software development, or if you want to pull in like some, let's say some tweets, or you make some API calls. This is all done, is all can be done in AI, in CI, automatically every time you make a change. And this is very useful, so you don't need to, every time you make a change, upload files, you know, through an FTP to some server. CI will take care of it automatically. And this works by using, in the background, every time you make a commit, it will take your commands that you've defined in a special file called a GitLab CI, and it will run this on another server in the background. So you have this server that can just handle everyone pushing, and it will automatically run these things behind in its own, you know, separate environment, which we use Docker for those that want to get into the, it's a Docker container, so it's really a clean environment. You can't interact with other repositories. And so this is sort of the flow, you know, like you do a git push, you commit your files, it reads the CI file, it will send it to, like, we call it a runner, but it's just some server. Start a virtual environment, install any software you may need, run some tasks, and then publish your website. And how it defines what to do is through this file. It's called a CI file. And this is just basically, I just made some comments so you can look into depth a bit further. But for most people with using the HTML, there's nothing really to do. You're just saying, well, I'm making this is the name of the job, so it's called pages. The script line defines what commands to run, and it's sort of like an array. So you've got sort of like a list of commands to run. So for HTML, there's nothing really to do. It's an empty file. But for example, if you're using Markdown or other projects, this is where you would say, well, install these dependencies, build the project into this folder. We always need to make sure it's a public folder. And then we tell GitLab which folder it is. So artifacts is telling GitLab, well, this is the folder I want you to copy to the server. So this is just, you know, if you want to get into the understanding of CI, you can read these files. I've made comments. You can look at your own, see what it's doing. And I want to show you when we run it. So I'm going to manually run one. So I'm going to say, I'm in the page of pipelines. I'm going to run a new one. I'm just going to run it based on my code, what I have. And you'll see, so this is just running, I'm now running the page's job on this specific commit. And if I look at it, I can see what the server is doing. So this is just sort of the output of what the server is doing. It's starting up a new server. It's going to clone my repository, and then it's going to run the commands, which it's telling me there were no commands to run, which is correct because I'm using HTML, so I don't have to do anything. And then it's uploading the artifact that I had defined earlier, the publics folder. And then I see at the bottom, it says job succeeded. This is very important. I need the job to succeed for my website to get updated. And so now when I go to my website, which I'll click here, and then I can see, okay, it deployed. So, right. There's some other examples. So if you want to see, I want to work with other different tools, like other website builders like MKDocs. If you want to get into that, Hugo, I have some example links here that I'll share these slides in a minute at the end of the call. And these, so you can look at like a CI file of another repository. So if you look at this project as a template, you can click the CI file, and then you can like read how it works and copy it, because pretty much it's the same. Very important though is whenever you're changing your C file or your files, is make sure the file name is exactly like this. You need this file in your project for your website to deploy. And it has a dot in front. So that's very important that you have .gitlab/ci.yaml. And of course, and the other small thing that if you've changed this file, you need to keep in mind that indentation matters a lot. So be aware that if you're copying and pasting lines from some examples, be aware of the indentations that they match up as you're from what you're copying. Yeah. Okay. So, and that can be, just to reiterate, build pipelines. So this is just a place you can go. You can see all your pipelines, make sure they're green, and then everything's, your website should always be published. The other way, so I just, if we want to, I just want to describe also, yeah, I forgot to, I can also edit my files. And in the web IDE on the project page, there is an edit button, web IDE. So if you click it, it will look something like this. And your files are on the left. And you can see this is the default template that you will have. So I have like the home page, which is index.html. So I'm just going to make a sample, an example commit. I'm going to make that change. And as you can see, this web IDE is also telling me the lines that change. So I see there's a little icon here. And then on the left, if I want to now save this change, it's not like when you do it on your computer, you click save. You have to like go on the left and commit your changes. So this is just a way to tell him that we want to save these changes to the repository. So I can see, okay, there's one file that changed. There's an M, so it says it's been modified. And then I can see the change also. If I click it, I can see, from the left side to the right side, it's changed. And then I can just write a little message, changed home page, and then I will commit and push it to the main branch. It's very important. And it says, are you sure? Yes, I want to commit to the default branch. And now I've saved this file. I can go back and look at my pipelines. So I go to build pipelines. I wait till it finishes building. So it's currently building the server. I can refresh it. I can also open it. I think maybe there's a lot of people working today, following along with me. Yeah. Okay, so in the meantime, while this is, oh, there we go. It started up. If it's very busy, the server, sometimes it can take a minute or two while some extra servers are being deployed to help. But once so it does scale automatically to handle more people running at the same time. Perfect, job succeeded. So now I can go to my website, I can refresh. Maybe I got to clear some cache. There we go. Welcome to Monday has appeared. So that's sort of the flow. I edit the file, I commit the file, and then I check my pipelines page to see that it completed, published the website, and then I can refresh my page. Sometimes it's a cache, so it can take like up to a minute sometimes to deploy to the server. Hi, Vicky, yes.
Hi, so question with that. Once you make an edit, is there a way of saving the original code? Like, because since we're new at this and I mess up on whatever I commit or try to see, how do I save the original code just in case to go back to it? Like, do I just copy and paste it into like, is there a folder that I can save the original?
A great question, yeah. So this is the great thing about Git, it's recording every change. So I can go to the commits list, and this is basically listing every time I click commit, every time I commit my changes, it's going to record that change. So if I would go to now look back to the commit I just made, I can open it up and it's going to show me all the files that changed. So this is a great way that if you accidentally, when you change something, you can look back. So for example, and this is inline, I'm going to change it to side by side, just so visually we can see it's from left to right. You can see the change. So you can just, this would allow you to see what was before the line. Maybe you made a typo, and then you can copy it in and then recommit it. This is also great to keep in mind, that don't be afraid to delete stuff and change stuff, because you can always go back to the commits, which means that to be organized, if your commit messages are well documented, that you're like, well, I'm editing in week 1, or I'm deleting this code, then it helps, because if you think about it, if you're working through the day, you might have 10 or 20 or 30 commits, depending how many times you save. So sometimes it can help to have good messages that help, because otherwise you're clicking through a lot of commits. And of course you can commit every line you change, or you can commit every day. This is also up to you. There's advantages, because if you commit, maybe let's say let's say every hour, that means, oh well, if you did make a change, you might have it there. Yeah, I think, right, that can help.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and also in GitLab, it's quite nice because you can go to the repository list. So let's say I have all these files. These are in my folder. I can also click a specific file. Let's say, so I'm now looking at public index.html, and there's a history button. So I can also look, GitLab will also show me all the commits just for this file. So that can also help to go back. So this is the really nice thing about Git. It will, as long as you're committing, it will remember what changed, and you can sort of revert back your changes if you commit. So the thing is, this is all in the browser, and it allows you to, it's a very powerful editor, and you can make a lot of changes in one. So you can, upload 4 images, change 5 files, and then do a big commit, which is great, because then, your commit history is not too big. But sometimes it can go wrong. Like sometimes maybe your browser crashes, and then you've lost the work, and so that it is still, you have to remember a website in your browser. So it may be beneficial to look into setting up Git locally. And there has some advantages of it. You don't need to load the website each time. You can do everything locally, test it out, view how it's going to look without first having to deploy, wait a minute for it to deploy to the server, refresh the browser. You can do everything locally and see your preview right away. And when you're really happy, then you can commit it. So I would like to quickly show you also how to set that up. Yeah, well, I went over Git. I briefly, just do your search to install. Everyone has different systems. Just roughly, if you would have a Mac or Windows, look up how to install Git. For Windows, try and install your sort of the Linux environment, because then you have better access to, to have a Unix environment is much easier to work with, I think, in Windows. So the first thing we have to do is we have to tell GitLab who your computer is, so that we need to tell GitLab that you can trust your computer, that every commit it sends, it's from you. And we do this using an SSH key, which is a public and a private key. The private key stays in your computer, and the public key, we give it to GitLab. And so GitLab is going to use this public key to sort of verify it as it matches with your private key. So we have to, if you have not already done so for other, maybe you already did it for GitHub, or you've done this already. But for those first timers, you can look at the GitLab documentation. It's also very good to how to create an SSH key. This is an example of creating one. You can write a little message as well. And it will ask you, where do you want to store this file? So maybe I can, this is my terminal. Yeah, this is my terminal. So I can also do an example, SSH. Yeah, oh, what? Oops. What did I do? Oh, what did I do? There, enter. I'm going to make this bigger. There we go. So it's going to ask you where to save it. You can use this as a default. I'm just going to make a custom name now. I'm going to just copy it for reference later. So you can use the default path if this is your first time. It's easy. You can add a custom name. It's don't enter a passphrase. It's not my, this is very low security entrance, so there's no need to put an extra passphrase. This is just a password. Every time you want to use the private key, you have to enter. So it's a bit annoying to do it for just git commits, because SSH keys are used in a lot of server environments, security environments. So it's now generated. And copy, this is the command to do it. You want to copy the public key, so it has to have a .pub at the end, because there's two files. So if I would look, oops. So if I look at this example, you see there's two files. There's the private key, and then there's a .pub. This is the public key. This is the one I want. So I'm going to do cat, which is sort of like output the file contents. And you're going to get this weird gibberish random letters. Just copy the whole line. And then you're going to go to your portfolio. You're in GitLab, sorry, you're going to go to preferences, SSH key, and you're going to make a new SSH key, add one, and you're going to paste it. And then you can also add a name. It's already added a name. And then it's good to have an expiration. You can do a year. I think it's by default. You can also remove it. Add key. So now GitLab knows about my public key. That should have gone well. I need to then test if it works. So you can copy this command on your local terminal, and then you paste it in. Enter. And if it works, you should see welcome to GitLab. You may also get a message saying you need to authorize, or it makes a fingerprint. So this is basically the first time you connect, it says like, are you sure you want to connect to the server? And it sort of remembers it. So just click yes, and then you should still see welcome to GitLab if it all went well. If it didn't go well, I suggest you check out the documents in GitLab. I've linked some specific issues that are pretty common. So sometimes if you have more than one SSH key, it won't pick it up. These are, just look at the GitLab. There's a, so now we want to clone the repository. So we're going to make a local copy of the repository that's in GitLab. I want to copy it to my computer. So I'm going to go back to my project homepage, and there you should find a blue copy, a code clone button, and we want to clone with SSH. So we're going to copy that URL, and then we're going to do write git clone space. I'm going to paste the URL. This Windows. And then you can also write the name of the folder. So I do space and then demo 127. So I can then click enter, and it's going to clone the repository to my computer. And now I have a local copy of the repository. And I say it is a copy, but with a specific, so if I look at, I'm just going to do, I'm going to have, you have to go into the folder. So you do cd demo in the name of the folder that I wrote. So now I'm in the folder. Your terminal might not look like this. Then I do git log, and then I can see these are the two commits that I had just made. And so I know that I've gotten the repo. Something you should also do the first time you set up Git on your computer is to tell Git who you are. And this is because every commit has a name and an email address associated with the commit. And this is also used by GitLab to assign your user to each commit. So it sort of also links that. So these are the two commands. You can write your name, and you can also put the email address, and you do that inside the student folder that you just cloned on your computer. I suggest you use the same email address you did with FabLabs.io so that they easily are linked together. So with it being locally, we have to also discuss a bit how Git works on your computer, which is a bit different in the browser because it's just happening much more behind the scenes. When I am looking at the folder, and let's say, if I list the folder, or if you open it with your desktop, you can see I have the files, and these are the files that are in the repository. But I'll stay on this image. When I'm working, we call this the working directory. This is where you're changing your files. This is when you open them in an editor. If you change file, if you add an image, it's always in the working directory. When you're ready to start committing files, you have to tell Git which files and which changes you want to be added to the commit. So we call this staging. So you tell Git, okay, stage this index file and add this image, and you tell it to stage it. And then in the staging area, this is the place, these are the files Git is going to commit. So here then, when you're in the staging area, you say Git commit, and then they're added to the Git repository. When they're in the Git repository, then that's when they're snapshot as a commit with the message. This is still your local repository. So after I'm missing from this image, but after this, when you make this Git repository, needs to be synchronized with what is in the GitLab on the website, so in the cloud. You have to then manually, so for example, you can make 4 or 5 commits to the day. Maybe at the end of the week, you're going to push all your commits to the syncer to the remote server. And I'm just going to demo a bit this process locally, just to quickly show you how to do it. So we have these, the first command to do is git status. This tells you what does your working directory look like. So mine is clean for the moment. I'm going to edit a file. You can use any editor you want. I'm just using Vim for now. I'm just going to say, I'm going to write in my HTML, hi, and then I'm going to save it. So now if I do git status, I'm going to see it's telling me, oh, 1 file modified. And these are not staged. So I have to tell, okay, I want to add this file. So I'm going to say stage. So this is done. To stage your file, you have to add it. So I'm telling Git, okay, add this change. I'm going to put the file there, index. So I'm going to add public.index to the staging. So now if I do git status, you see it is now changes to be committed. It's different from changes not to be committed. So for example, if I have, ignore this. If I do git status, now I have another file changed. So I have 2 files, one that's been staged and one that isn't staged. When I'm going to commit now, is only going to be the stuff that's been staged. So this allows you to work on a few files and then only commit certain parts of the files or certain files. So this allows you to be very selective of what you're deciding to commit this time. Sorry. Oops. And then we do git commit is the command to make a new commit with whatever is in stage. So I'm going to write git commit, and then with an M, I'm going to write my message. And I'm going to say added hi to homepage. I'm going to say, and then I'm going to press enter. Oops. Make sure you're spelling git commit. And it's going to tell me, yay, that's the commit I made. That's the commit ID. And it's going to tell me, okay, 1 file changed, and tells you a bit about what happened. And so if I do git log, I can see my local repository. I can see, oh, I've got a new commit that I have locally. But if I go to my commit history on GitLab in the cloud, I can see it's not there yet. So what we have to do is we have to push our commits from our local repository to the remote repository. in the cloud. And we're going to use push. So we're pushing our commits up to the cloud. So I do git push. And then it's going to contact the server. I think this might not happen. Maybe I need to. Sorry, I just need to tell it which SSH key, because I have more than one SSH key. So maybe. What was my SSH key? Yes. I'm going to try and push again. And it worked. So you can see it's the last line just tells you, okay, it's pushing to this repository, and it went from this commit to that commit. So now if I go to my repository in the cloud, in GitLab Cloud, I can see now the commit's been added, and it's already got blue marks, so it's already passed. If I refresh my website, it should say hi. Yeah. Great. So yeah, please, try it. Yeah, I already did try. For example, you should have your student agreement already in your repo, so you can try that locally. Adding a new file is the same. There might be one issue if you're making a lot of commits. So for example, I mentioned you can choose when to push all your commits, when to commit. So if you would commit maybe once a week, you might end up adding a lot of files in one commit. And we have a limit of 10 megabytes per commit. So just keep this in mind. Unless you're committing, often, this shouldn't be a problem. So you might get these issues. I just highlighted here that if you're adding a large file, we have these restrictions. Also, keep in mind that if I make a change here, so let's say, for example, I make another change in the cloud. Oops. Let me quickly do this because I want to show something else. No. Yeah, refresh. I wanted to tell about, so you can make, for example, if you have a local repository and the remote repository and you're making changes in the cloud and the remote repository, you have to keep in mind that when you do stuff locally, that you pull down the changes as well. Remember, we push commits up. Sometimes you have to pull the commits that you made in the cloud locally so that you have them locally before you start working again. Because commits are done sequentially one after another. So if you have something on the remote server that you don't have locally, you won't be able to push those commits. You first need to pull. So you can look into pulling and rebasing. If you do everything locally, this won't be a problem. But if you do a bit of both, this is something you have to keep in mind. Every time you start working for the day, do a pull. And I just, I won't show you this, but you just basically do a git pull, and it will pull down anything that's on the remote server. But I'm already up to date. So yeah. Another interesting command is git diff. This tells you the difference of a file. So if I do read me, I can say, show me the differences in my local working copy from what is in the server. And you can see that I have here, it says one line is being added high. If I now edit this file and I say, no, and I do git diff, I can see, well, there's a minus and a plus. So the minus is saying this is the old line and the plus is the new line, and I can see what changed. So this is the same thing what I showed you earlier, where you can look at the diff online. You can do this on terminal, or if you have an editor, you can do this stuff, and the log. So you can also see the history of all the commits you did locally as well as in GitLab. There's a few suggested links if you want to really deep dive more into Git. These are the basic commands. Sometimes Git is a very advanced tool that helps you work together. So you can get more into it. Also about your website, something we have to talk about is file sizes. Because you're committing everything every time you make a change, we keep track of every change. So if you commit a large image to your repository, that is there forever. If you commit a text file with all your passwords in there, that's there forever. So this is something to keep in mind. Git keeps track of every change. So you cannot, even if you delete an image, it's still in Git. Git is just recording you adding the file and then deleting the file. So it's still there. You could still go back to that file that you deleted and recover it. So that means you have to pay special attention to the sizes of the images. But as well as when you're looking at someone's website, remember you're downloading all their images and videos when you're viewing the page. If you do this on mobile, you're using their data as well. And not everyone might have the same data or internet speed as you. So we have some good defaults that I think we should try and all follow, is making your images as small as possible. I suggest 800 pixels wide is a good default to have, because most websites, especially for documenting, are not going to be very wide images. But if you have a very wide image, you can use. But I think 800 is a good wide, and that means you can have images that are like 100 kilobytes. Same for videos, really try and optimize them a lot, keep them short, keep the resolution really small. If you're just zooming in and showing like a glass or your 3D work, you don't need to have a really good definition. You just want to have the idea of what's something working, maybe something's moving. So try and aim for 1 to 5 megabytes. I think it's very doable. You just maybe have to see what kind of quality you want for what you're trying to show. So I show in this example, we have a limit of 500 megabytes per website. So if you need to plan how much budget, how much gigabytes, how much megabytes of space you can use for the whole year. So you've got to sort of like plan this out. So I'm using it as an example. If you had 100 images of 100 kilobytes, 100 images on each week might be a lot. For some weeks, might not be for other weeks. So this is just an example. You can already end up from 200 megabytes just with images throughout the whole class. And then if you like having videos in your documentation, so let's add another like couple of 10 megabytes as a maximum. I'm just using it as an example. If you manage to do small videos, you're going to have more, so by the end of the year, you're going to have 200 megabytes, another 200 megabytes. That it can easily go fast. And, you want room, because maybe at the end, you either some special weeks you want to show more videos, or maybe the final project, you want to show really high resolution images. So you've got to make sure you have enough room to get to the end, megabytes to get in. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and redo images, deleting images. And then, so I really suggest you make a plan, try and keep track of how big your folders get each week, and be careful, don't take a picture with your phone and then straight away upload it, because, your phone is going to make a really high resolution image of 2 megabytes. So if you compare 2 megabytes, 200 kilobytes is going to be a big difference. So yeah, I really want to hone this in. And yep. Last thing I want to quickly go over is, so in the HTML template that you have, HTML is the raw files that are all read by your browser. But for each week, you're going to have to do a lot of copying and pasting specific like menus. The menu's got to be in sync. So, and you've got to write your P tags, your H tags, your image tags. So sometimes I can imagine when you're documenting, you just want to write the text and upload the images and not have to deal too much with HTML parsing. And in the past, we've used a lot is called Markdown. And Markdown is just sort of a structured language saying, okay, I want titles, I want quotes, I want lists. And then it can automatically format that text into HTML for you. And there are tools like mkdocs, which can just add a nice theme to it so that you get a sidebar, you get a menu, you can do some light editing. So if you're really interested to increase the, use a sort of a Markdown template, an editor, look into mkdocs. There's some nice themes. We also have some templates in an mkdocs. You can look at how it works. There's also Hugo. So if you would like to use Markdown, I suggest you go to this template. I've linked it in the slides, and you need to copy all these files. So you need the requirements, the mkdocs, you need the .gitlab CI file, and you need the docs folder. And then you can delete all the files that you have in previously. So for example, if I have my folder, I'm just going to delete my public folder. I'm going to delete the README. And then I'm going to download. I'm just going to, because I had this locally. If you don't have this locally, you can do this through the web editor. I'm just going to like, you know, download. So I can download a zip of all these files automatically. So I have them on my computer. If I have it on the editor, I can also just go here and I can right click and I can say delete the whole folder. And then I can, with these toggles, upload a new file or upload a new folder. So I can do everything in the editor, or I can do it locally. So now if I imagine I copied all the files that I just downloaded, I now have the docs folder. If I do git status, I can see all the files that have been deleted. And then I have, okay, these new files, which Git is saying, well, untracked files is saying Git is not looking at these files that have, you know, they're just new. Don't have any history on them yet. So I need to add it. So I need to add the docs. I need to git add mkdocs, git add requirements. And then I need to git add also the deletion of the public folder. So if I do git status, I now see in green, because this is under changes to be committed, I see new files. This is from the template, new files, and then I see deleted. So I deleted the old public folder and I've added the docs folder, which is very specific to mkdocs. I also didn't copy, I see the GitLab CI file. Well, what happened? Oh, anyway, I messed everything up. So anyway, yeah, and then you just, you know, you do git commit m. I really messed everything up. So I can't show you the final result, but you just say converting to mkdocs, and then you click enter, and then you've committed that stuff. And then you should see, if everything goes well, you should see your pipeline go green as well for this. These pipelines for mkdocs takes a bit longer. So wait till they complete. And then it will look a bit like, yeah, it will look a bit like something like this. So then you know mkdocs is working. And the reason I say delete your public folder, so you know you're looking at the old one and you don't want to have duplicates of stuff. If you've already added work, then I suggest you don't maybe delete everything, but you sort of then copy the images into the docs folder from your public folder and stuff. So I hope that was sort of a quick rundown of mkdocs. There's some great themes as well. Look into it. Yeah, so there's the doc folder is a bit different. The docs folder is just having all the markdown. And yeah, there's the template, you can look into it and customize it how you like. There's the material theme, really great. And these are common errors for mkdocs. I'll share these slides. You can look at them if you have this issue. There's also a Hugo. There's also a quick template. I know some instructors really like Hugo. I mean, some students. So if you want to get Hugo, it's a bit more, it's markdown, can also be marked down, but a bit more advanced templates. It's another great static template builder. And there's also a quick a template if you want to look at it. And you can copy all these files in there as well. And yeah, so I leave it open maybe just for the last few minutes, some questions, if there are any. And I realize I missed the chat, but was there any questions that didn't get answered? Yeah, so just quickly, you know, I'm just filling in some time. There's also the web editor. Remember that I might have not mentioned that to add a new file, you can also do this in the web editor. So yeah.
See, that was a great review. 2 comments. One is in the web UI, you don't need to merge. Did you show that?
Yeah, it can happen that by accident. So GitLab can also have sort of multiple versions that you work simultaneously.
No,
So
but sorry, Julian, what I'm describing is in the
yeah,
web UI, by default, it asks, do you want to create a new branch? And unless you need to merge, you shouldn't.
Yeah, so you want to be committing to the main branch as the default branch, but if by accident you commit, the alternative is to create another branch and you commit that. So if by accident you do this, I have seen this happen in the past. So I'm just going to show by accident, let's say I committed to a separate branch. And then you're going to say yourself, well, I don't see those changes. What happened? Because I did deploy them. You're going to see that you have another branch here. So there's the main and there's another branch. You're going to have to merge it in. So there's this sort of like make a merge request, click new merge request, and then you have to create it. This is how you work collaborative in these, right? So this is just you working. You're just going to create a merge request. And then once it's created, you can just click merge. So this is just merging that separate branch back into the main one. So this is really not necessary, as Neil says, it's not necessary to do. It's just extra steps to do. So you can commit directly to the main branch.
But Julian, I've been seeing people doing it. So
Yeah.
pick a repo and make a small change.
Yeah.
And then just make a small change and then okay, and then start the commit.
Yeah, so see, this is asking me to commit to a separate branch. I've got to make sure that you select commit to, how can I select?
Let's see, I'm not sure, you're in a funny mode that I don't recognize.
Yeah,
Just
I'm gonna
refresh.
it.
By default, it's committing to the main branch, but it gives you an option to create another branch. And unless you know you need that, don't do that.
Yeah. Don't do that. And if you have, and you want to keep your work, do the merge request thing. But yeah, always commit to your main branch. I'm going to show one more time here in the editor. So if I just quickly take a public folder index, you have to click the stage. I see the change, and it says so that button has to say commit and push the main. And then when you write the message, there's a pop-up. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes there's I'm not sure why it's not here. Sometimes
it's because I already did it. It's the first time you do it, it will ask you, are you sure you want to commit to the default branch or you want to create a new branch? But after you've done the first time, it won't ask you anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Then the second comment is I strongly recommend just open a terminal, make a directory, just any name, go into test, and then do git init.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Git init, initializing a new Git repository.
Okay. So the point is, this is now a new Git repo, separate from all the ones we've been doing, that's just on this computer. And you can play with these. You can make a few Git repos. You can clone one to another place. You can push on between them. And so I strongly recommend creating your own local Git repos just to play with all of these commands before you start working on the repo on the server.
Yeah, you can make a mess because it's all locally.
Yeah. And once again, without a doubt, if you're not familiar with this, this is to start one of the least fun things we're going to do in the Fab Academy. But it's going to become one of the most useful things you'll learn. So the pain is worth it.
Yeah, I might say there's also, you know, you can manually like undo changes you want, but you can also in Git, they have this sort of revert button, which sort of says completely everything this commit does, just do the reverse of it, which helps if you're doing really small commits. If you do big commits, it won't help because you might want not to undo everything. So that's why I always check the history, write good commit messages, and that will help you in the future if you ever have to go back. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Julian. I'll stop recording.